Hoot Chapter 19. "I'm worried about the owls," Officer Delinko told Curly. "What owls?" Darkness had fallen on the construction site, and swallows were swooping back and forth, chasing mosquitoes. Tomorrow was the big day. "Come on, I saw him with my own eyes," the patrolman said. "Isn't there a way to, move him someplace safe?" Curly said. "Want my advice? Don't think about it. Put it out of your mind, is what I do." "I can't. That's the trouble." Curly jerked a thumb toward the trailer. "You want to take a break? I rented the new Jackie Chan." Officer Delinko couldn't understand how the foreman could be so casual about burying the owl dens. He wondered if it was just a macho act. "Did you tell them the birds were out here?" he asked. "Tell who?" "The Pancake Company. Maybe they don't know." Curly snorted. "You kidding me? They know everything," he said. "Look, it ain't our problem. Even if we wanted to, there's nothing we could do." Curly went off to his trailer while Officer Delinko resumed patrolling the grounds. Whenever he passed a burrow, he shined his flashlight inside, but he saw no owls. He hoped the birds had already sensed that something awful was about to happen and had flown away, though it seemed improbable. Shortly after midnight, Officer Delinko heard Curly come out and shout his name. The foreman claimed he'd been awakened by a noise like someone climbing the fence. With his gun drawn, the policeman searched the area thoroughly. He checked the roof of the trailer and underneath it too. All he found was a line of opossum tracks in the sand. "Sounded way bigger'n a possum," Curly said grumpily. Later, as Officer Delinko was retrieving his third thermos of coffee from the squad car, he thought he saw a series of small white flashes at the other end of the property. It reminded him of the bright popping he'd seen at late-night car accidents while the police department's photographer was snapping pictures. But when Officer Delinko ran to where he'd seen the flashes, he found nothing out of the ordinary. It must have been a burst of heat lightning, he thought, reflecting off the low clouds. The rest of the night passed uneventfully. The patrolman stayed wide awake. At breakfast, Roy asked his mother if he could leave school during lunch. He figured she'd be more likely than his father to say yes, but she surprised him. "I don't know if it's such a good idea for you to go to the Mother Paula's groundbreaking." "But, Mom, let's see what your dad thinks." Oh well, Roy thought, that'd be the end of that. As soon as Mr. Eberhart sat down at the table, Mrs. Eberhart informed him of Roy's request. "Sure, why not?" Mr. Eberhart said. "I'll write him a note." Roy's jaw hung open. He had expected the opposite reaction from his father. "But you've got to promise to behave," Mr. Eberhart said, "no matter how ticked off you get." "I promise, Dad." Later, his father put Roy's bicycle in the trunk of his car and drove Roy to Trace Middle. As he dropped him off in front of the school, Mr. Eberhart said, "Think your friend will be at the ceremony today? Beatrice's stepbrother?" "Probably," Roy said. "Pretty risky." "I know, Dad. I tried to tell him." "You be careful," Mr. Eberhart said firmly, "and be smart." "Yes, sir." Beatrice Leap was waiting outside Roy's homeroom. Her curly hair was damp, as if she'd just gotten out of the shower. "Well," she said, "I got a note. How about you?" Beatrice displayed a crumpled paper napkin that had been scrawled upon in red ink. "I woke up my old man to ask him. He was so far out of it, he would have signed anything," she said. "I should have written myself a check for $1,000. "So I guess we're all set for noon," Roy said. He lowered his voice. "I went to see your brother. He threw me out of the truck." Beatrice shrugged. "What can I say? Sometimes he's impossible." She fished in her purse and came out with the camera belonging to Roy's mother. He dropped this off at the house late last night, after Lana and Dad went to bed. He says he got the pictures you wanted. I tried to take a look, but I couldn't figure out how to work the darn thing." Wordlessly, Roy grabbed the camera and stashed it in his locker. "Keep your fingers crossed," Beatrice said, before melting into the scream of students and disappearing down the hall. Roy spent the rest of the morning lost in excited distraction, wondering if his plan might actually work. At 10:45 a.m., a black stretch limousine pulled up to the empty lot at Woodbury and East Oriole. The driver got out and opened one of the doors. Nothing happened for several moments, and then a tall man with wavy silver hair emerged, squinting into the sun. He wore pressed white trousers and a dark blue blazer, with an emblem on the breast pocket. The man glanced around impatiently behind enormous tinted sunglasses. Crisply, he snapped his fingers at Officer David Delinko, who was unlocking his squad car. The patrolman failed to notice he was being summoned. He was knocking off work after 14 straight hours at the construction site. Curly had gone home to shower and shave, so Officer Delinko had stayed to keep an eye on the earth-moving machines, which had been refitted with new seats. Now that the foreman has returned, dressed up in a coat and tie of all things, the policeman was leaving the premises. He had no desire to hang around for the groundbreaking nonsense. "Officer!" the silvery-haired man beckoned insistently. "Yo, officer! Over here!" Officer Delinko approached the limousine and asked what was wrong. The man introduced himself as Chuck E. Muckle, a vice president of something or other for Mother Paula's All-American Pancake House, Inc. In confidential tone, he added, "We need some discreet assistance here." "Well, I'm off duty," Officer Delinko told him, "but I'd be glad to call for another unit." He was so exhausted from lack of sleep that he barely had enough energy to carry on a conversation. "Do you happen to know who's sitting in this car?" Chuck Muckle asked, nodding toward the limo. "No, sir. Miss Kimberly Lou Dixon." "That's nice," Officer Delinko blankly said. "The Kimberly Lou Dixon. Well, what'd you know?" Chuck Muckle thrust his ruddy face closer. "You've got no idea who I'm talking about, do you, officer?" "Not a clue, sir. Never heard of the lady." The company vice president rolled his eyes and proceeded to explain who Kimberly Lou Dixon was and why she traveled all the way from Beverly Hills, California to Coconut Cove, Florida. "And right this minute," Chuck Muckle said, "she rather urgently needs a powder room." "A powder room," Officer Delinko repeated quizzically. "A place to powder her nose? A place to freshen up?" Chuck Muckle erupted in exasperation. "Is this really such a difficult concept to grasp, officer? Let me try to put this in language you can understand. She needs a potty, okay?" "Gotcha," Officer Delinko gestured toward Curly's trailer. "Follow me." When Kimberly Lou Dixon got out of the limousine, Officer Delinko was startled by how young she looked compared to the wrinkly old granny she played on the TV commercials. Kimberly Lou had bright green eyes and rich auburn hair and smooth, milky skin. A lovely and cultured woman, Officer Delinko thought. Then she opened her mouth. "I got a tinkle," she announced in a sandpaper voice. "Lead the way, hotshot." The actress carried a leather tote bag over one shoulder, and she wore high heels, a black skirt, and a pale, silky blouse. Curly was dumbstruck when he opened the door of the trailer. Without a word, Kimberly Lou Dixon stepped past him and made her way to the bathroom. "Can I change in here?" she asked in a husky voice. "Change what? You look pretty darn good the way you are." "Change into her Mother Paula's costume," Officer Delinko interjected. She's got some guy. He wants to know if he can use your trailer as a dressing room. Anytime, Curly said with a dreamy smile. A man's silhouette filled the doorway, followed by a gust of oily cologne. Why, you must be the one and only Leroy Brannett, growled a familiar, sarcastic voice. Curly cringed. Osterdelenko stepped out of the way and said, "This gentleman is from the Pancake House Company." "I figured," said Curly. He held out his right hand to Chuck Muckle, who stared at it as if it were a dead mudfish. "Please tell me, Mr. Brannett, that you have no bad news that would spoil this lovely tropical morning. Tell me everything's hunky-dory here in Coconut Cove." "Yes, sir," Curly said. "We stayed the last 2 nights on the property, me and the policeman here, and it's been peaceful as a church house. Ain't that right, David?" "Right-o," Officer Delinko said. Chuck Muckle whipped off his shades and eyed the patrolman dubiously. "You wouldn't happen to be the same crackerjack lawman who fell asleep in his car while the vandal trashed our survey stakes, would you?" As curious as Officer Delinko was to see Kimberly Lou Dixon dressed up as Mother Paula, he now wished that he were somewhere far, far away. "This same genius," Mr. Muckle went on, "whose careless sleep habits resulted in a newspaper article that unfairly smeared the good name and reputation of Mother Paula's. Was that you?" "Yeah, that would be him," Curly said. Officer Delinko shot the foreman a dirty look before addressing Mr. Muckle. "I'm really sorry about that, sir," the patrolman said, thinking. "Sorrier for me than for you." "I'd rather astounding that you still have a job," Chuck Muckle remarked. "Your police chief must have a charitable heart. Either that or he's desperate for warm bodies." Curly finally came up with something positive to contribute. "Officer Delinko is the one who helped me catch the burglar the other night." It was a shameless exaggeration of Curly's role in the capture of Dana Matherson, and Officer Delinko was about to set the record straight when Kimberly Lou Dixon came rocketing out of the bathroom. "You've got, like, a major roach situation in there," she exclaimed. "They ain't roaches, they're crickets," Curly said. "I don't know where the heck they all come from." He elbowed his way past Officer Delinko and Chuck Muckle and introduced himself to the actress. "I'm the supervising engineer of this project, Miss Dixon, and I just want you to know that I seen all your movies." "All 2 of them, you mean?" Kimberly Lou Dixon patted his shiny scalp. "That's all right, Mr. Brannett. It's still a darling thing for you to say. Hey, I can't wait for your new one, too. Mutant Invaders from Saturn 11. I really go for that sci-fi stuff." "Jupiter 7!" Chuck Buckle cut in. "It's called Mutant Invaders from Jupiter 7. "Whatever," Curly gushed. "You're gonna make a fantastic grasshopper queen." "Yeah, I'm already writing my Oscar speech." The actress glanced at her diamond-studded wristwatch. "Listen, I'd better hurry up and start turning myself into adorable old Mother Paula. Can one of you sweethearts please fetch my suitcase out of the limo?" I don't know why it's stopping there, but that's the end of that chapter.